All right, everyone, welcome to Autism Parenting Secrets Part 1. I'm going to go ahead and share this live on Facebook. So give me one moment here as I make that happen. Let's see. Part 1, share on in a group. You'll give me 1 second here. I'll be able to get it going. Select the group. Okay. Um, Parenting at Home Autism Challenges in a Spirit of Love. That is my group. And so I'm going to pop that on here. Taking me a minute. I guess I'm a part of a bunch of groups, apparent. Here we go. Parenting at Home Autism Challenges in a Spirit of Love. Go live. All right. Let's see here. Preparing to live stream the meeting. I believe I should be going live now. Let me see here. Content is being to a third party. Got it. Okay. The meeting is now streaming live on Facebook. Hello, everyone. My name is Kyle Jetzel. I am the Driven Autism Dad, and welcome to Autism Parenting Secrets. This is a 5-part series where I'm going to teach you some tricks and techniques and training that are going to help you do a lot of things that are going to be really helpful for your family. But I do want to share my screen real quick so I can go ahead and get started properly, and we can jump right into this. So a couple of things right up front. Let's see, share screen. Uh-oh. I got to figure out how to share my screen now. I'm not a tech. That is the first thing I was going to tell you guys. I am not a technical genius. So if it takes me a moment to do things, you'll have to be patient with me. That is not where my expertise lies. However, I think I just shared my screen. And welcome to Autism Parenting Secrets, 5-part training for parents that are having some difficulties or maybe struggling at home a little bit with a lot of meltdowns or aren't really sure how to be the best parent they can be for their kids. So we'll get right into this. This is what the autism experts, specialists, and therapists should have told you when you first got the diagnosis, if they only knew. And frankly, I don't think they know. The only people that know this are people that have raised these kids, that have been doing this for a long time, and have been through the cycle, the ringer. And this is all about parenting your at-home autism challenges in a spirit of love. And I'll share with you what I mean by at-home as we go forward. So part 1, the 3 secrets that are holding autism parents back from long-term family happiness. Now, understanding the details of these 3 secrets and I'm going to share our experiences with you so you'll kind of see how this applies to us. But if you'll put yourself in our position, I'm sure you'll find a lot of connections with how we were managing things and how we wanted to manage things, what our family was and what our family is now. And we'll talk about that a little bit. So first thing I want to do is congratulate you. You're here. That's the first step. That's the biggest and first step in this process, is to actually do something, right? And you've already started doing something and you're taking action. Way too many parents, way too many of us get in this cycle of it is what it is, or there's nothing else to learn, or I've tried everything, or my family's so unique, or my kids are so unique that won't work for me. And we kind of stop. Although we say we'd go to the moon and back for our kids, we kind of stop trying things and get in a cycle of discouragement and frustration and a lot of struggle. And that's what this is about. I'm here to help you overcome that through this process. So I also realize it's easy to do nothing and default to discouragement, or say something like, I'll start tomorrow, or it is what it is. But we all know tomorrow never comes, right? If you don't start, you'll never get started, and you'll never really find the answers that you're looking for. And I'm going to share with you some of those answers. And I know that's a bold promise, but you're going to see, if you stay with me as we go through this thing, that I am going to share with you answers, and you're going to love them. So the goal of the Autism Parenting Secrets, my goal for this 5-part training is, by the time we're done, you'll have what you need to remove stress right away. And that means if you're facing meltdowns all day long, or you feel stressed out all the time about it, we're going to remove that for you. You're going to know that you're doing everything you can to become the greatest parent possible. And I know that's another bold claim because we always wonder, what else can I do? I'm trying, but I don't know what else I can do. I don't know what else is out there. You'll know you're doing everything you can to become the greatest parent possible at the end of this 5-day training. And you'll start creating a world where you and your kids can thrive, even as you face meltdowns or violence or rage or biting or kicking or screaming or uh, defiant kids or kids who press your buttons, or if you're a worrier and you worry too much, all those things. I'm gonna teach you how to remove those out of your lives so that you can create a world where you and your kids can thrive. And the secret today, I want you to know, is that it's not your fault. And that's an important thing for us to understand because we've been led down a path that's really kind of gotten us here. I read a story recently that said, I think $6 billion a year is spent on autism therapies and training and experts and specialists. And still, there's entirely too many of us as parents and too many kids that are struggling at home with meltdowns and burnout and, smashing TVs or iPads or whatever it is we're struggling from. So we're going to talk about that today. So part one is the agenda. So the agenda for the 5 parts, I'm going to talk about what we're going to cover first in the next 5 parts, 5 days. So the agenda for the 5-part Autism Parenting Secrets is we're going to cover the workbook real quick. That's today. I'll tell you who I am, who is Kyle, and who cares. It's important to know that you're not just listening to somebody that's making crap up or someone who claims to be an expert that has no real life, real world experience. You need to know that. We're going to talk about avoiding the biggest mistakes and those 3 secrets that are holding most of us as families back. Why this event? Why am I putting this event on? Why would I even do that? And then we'll talk about, will this work for you? And there is homework. Now you may say, wait a minute, homework? And I'm like, yeah, this is an action oriented presentation. And I want you to do something at the end of each day. And if you do, I will reward you. At the end of the 5 days, those of you that have done those things and reported to me, there's nothing more important than accountability. And if we are accountable to getting these things done and you report those things to me, there will be a reward. Almost $1,000 worth of free autism parenting related items I'm going to give away at the end of this. And it doesn't matter if it's one person or it's 100 of you that do this. If you do it, you will get the reward. So the agenda for the 5-part event, what we'll cover. Part 1 today, we're going to talk about the 3 secrets that are holding us back and why it's not your fault. Part 2 tomorrow, we're going to talk about the secret 4-part framework. And it's not one size fits all. I guess it's a 5-part framework, 4.5 parts framework. But I realize, and you realize, every family is different. Every child is unique and different. What works for me may not work for you. What works for you may not work for somebody else. And we're going to discuss that and how to create a framework for your family so that you can find out what does work for your family uniquely and create your own framework for thriving in the chaos of raising these kids and becoming the greatest parent ever, like we said at the beginning, and lowering stress. That's what we've done, and we'll talk about how we did that and how you can do that. Part 3, we'll talk about how one good decision can change everything. And this is how, way too often we know what we should do, we just can't do it, right? When things get tricky or we forget what we're supposed to do, or we lose our patience, or we get tired, all those things can hold us back. We'll talk about how one good decision can change everything. Part 4, day 4, we're going to talk about how to be at your best. And I'm going to share with you a very specific strategy for how to start being at your best when they're at their worst every time. If they get bent out of shape, start having crazy meltdowns, go into fight or flight, you don't need to go into fight or flight too. You need to be at your very best when they're at their very worst, but that's when it's the hardest. And we're going to talk about a very specific strategy on Thursday, day 4, where you're going to learn how to do that. And when you leave day 4, you'll know that you can do it and you're going to start doing it. By the way, on day 3, I'm going to teach you another very specific strategy for winning every meltdown. Way too often meltdowns ruin our day. And I'm going to teach you how they don't have to ruin your day. They can actually energize you. Facing a meltdown and doing the right things every time can give you energy and give your family energy, and you can still thrive as a family. And if you have to face a meltdown, way too often we have to face that meltdown and it ruins the rest of our day. With this strategy, I'm going to teach you on Wednesday, day 3. You're going to learn a very specific step-by-step strategy you can follow to win every meltdown, and it's going to give you energy when you face these meltdowns. I know it sounds crazy, but stay with me on day 3, part 3 on Wednesday. We'll cover that. And then part 5, which is day 5 on Friday, we're going to talk about your action plan moving forward. Again, this is not a listen to Kyle, I'm going to teach you a few things, and then you go back to your normal life. That's not why I'm doing this. And if that's why you're doing it, maybe you don't want to do it. I want you to take action because I want to see you get results, just like our family. And you'll see if you'll take that action, you will start getting those results. And that's going to give you confidence that you can continue this process. That's why I'm doing this, okay? So workbook overview. If you haven't already registered, some of you are just logging in live, please go register because you can get a workbook, and I'll pull it up here real quick. This is your Autism Parenting Secrets workbook. You'll see it's got an introduction, what we're going to cover on each day. It's got the link to the Zoom meeting that's going to be the same every day, Monday through Friday at 1:00 p.m. Mountain Time. And then it's got day 1 through day 5 activities and your homework, okay? I will be sharing each day's homework in another place in our Facebook group, our Parenting at Home Autism Challenges in a Spirit of Love. I know it's a long name, Facebook group, but it has to be long to describe what we do. Parenting at Home Autism Challenges in a Spirit of Love. That's what this whole program is about. It's not about forcing anybody to do anything. It's not about changing anybody. It's about parenting in a spirit of love. And I'll show you how we're going to do that. So if you haven't already, get the workbook. It'll be helpful for you. You'll have that. You can keep that forever, no matter what. Okay. And if you'll do that, let's live intentionally. Let's decide. And one of the first things we're going to do at the end of the day today, if you haven't already, we'll talk about it. What do you want to get from this? I want you to think about, what do you want to get from this event? And write it down. Grab a piece of paper and a pencil. By the way, I already have. Write it down. Write it down what you want to get. And what is going to happen is you're going to find yourself searching for that, and you're going to get it. And that's exactly what I want you to do. Let's live intentionally through this thing, and let's get those things that we're after, okay? So who's Kyle and who cares? So my name is Kyle Jetzel. I am the happily married father of 6 kids. My 2 oldest sons now are married. I have their own wives, and I don't have any grandkids yet, but maybe before too long, right? But I am now a widower. My wife passed away about 2 years ago. We were married for 30 years. And we have and I'll tell you a little bit more. Among our kids, we have autism in our family. Specifically, the one I'm going to talk about a lot today is more severe on the autism spectrum. He has given us tremendous challenges. And I'll run down a list. Daily meltdowns, potty training, getting him to eat. He was defiant. He liked to argue, non-verbally argue, which is crazy, right? He pressed hot buttons. He had rage, violence, biting, kicking, screaming, smashing iPads, TVs, oppositional defiance disorder. All these things are things we have faced with our kids and overcome them, and created a top 1% happy marriage and a top 1% happy family. Now, I've had a lot of people ask me, how can you quantify that you have a top 1% happy marriage? Well, the way I can do that is because I thought we had a top 1% happy marriage, and my wife did too. And we would tell people that, and we believe that. And I'll share with you a quick story to illustrate that. Around our 25-year anniversary or so, we decided to change banks. And I remember she and I went together to change banks and sign all the paperwork. And as we were sitting there, it takes about 15 or 20 minutes. We're sitting there in front of the banker, and she and I are just having simple conversations, just doing our best to enjoy the time sitting in front of a banker for, half an hour or whatever it was. And when we were done, the banker leaned in and she said to my wife, she said, "Are you guys newlyweds?" And my wife started laughing. And she said, "No, we've been married 25 years. And she said, "Oh my gosh, the only time I ever see couples this happy that are couples of your age are newlyweds. And you just seem so happy." And my wife said, we're a top 1% happy marriage, and we have a top 1% happy family. And my family to this day is even our kids that are married and have moved away are always here. Once a week or so, they're always here. We're always goofing around, having fun. Even as we have raised them and are continuing to raise their younger brothers and sister. They're here. And as we drove away from the bank that day, I remember my wife looked at me. She said, "You know what? I think somehow we might have just, you know, made that sweet lady understand that you can be happy, even in a long-term marriage, and be buoyant and really enjoy each other." And so we had that. So the reason I'm telling you guys this is because I know I have what many parents who are raising kids on the autism spectrum they want. They want a happy family. They want to be able to manage difficulties and situations in a way that doesn't ruin their happiness or create so much stress that it causes conflict between the mom and dad, which it did for us early on until we learned what I'm going to teach you in this training. You want your typical kids to feel loved. You don't want to spend so much time with your kids that need special attention that your typical kids feel unloved or unwanted or ignored. And that's what we have. And that's who I am, and that's why I'm doing what I do. I want to give back. And as we finish up today's, I'll tell you the real reason why. But I want you to know it's not just luck, and it's not just hope, and it's not just prayer. It's a plan and acting on that plan and making that plan a reality. And that is what I'm going to share with you in this training. I'm going to share with you how to create your own custom plan and how to stay on top of that plan and make it work for you and your family so that you can become, if you're married, a top 1% happy marriage. I'm now a single parent, and I still have a top 1% happy family. I can't say I have a top 1% happy marriage anymore, but I still feel married. It's only been a couple of years, so I guess I still can. But if you're a single mom or a single dad, you still want to have a top 1% happy family and feel like the greatest parent in the world. And that's what I'm going to teach you. So that's what we have. That's what I have. And that's where I'm coming from when I teach you this process that we went through and the framework we used to go from being in peril and really struggling to where we are now. So I want you to know that there was a time, it wasn't always that way with us. We weren't always a top 1% happy family and a top 1% happy marriage. As a matter of fact, we were in trouble. We were really struggling. And I'll kind of start from the beginning to give you an idea how we got there. So when my wife and I had our first two sons, they were typical boys, just crazy little animals running around acting a fool. But she and I worked together pretty well, and we're creating a pretty happy family. Even as these two little boys were growing up, we were kind of creating a world where they could be happy, and they had discipline, and we were teaching them to be good men and good, kind young men, even as little boys. And my wife was enjoying them even as they, pulled what little boys do. And we were unafraid. My wife and I were unafraid to read books and learn and study and apply things that we were learning because that's what we wanted. We had talked about it. We wanted to have a happy family, and we were willing to work at it. We weren't just going to sit back and do what we call default parenting, which is, my parents parented me. I turned out okay. I'm going to default. I'm sure I'll be an okay parent. That wasn't enough for us because both of us had come up in situations where it wasn't perfect, right? And there were some difficulties that we both faced as kids that we didn't want to push on our kids, right? So we were unafraid to learn and study and apply those things, and we're working on it. And when my first two sons were growing up, we really could see that we were creating that kind of family. Then my number 3 son, Eric, came along, and everything changed dramatically. I'll never forget, we didn't know, this is 20 years ago now. My son, who's more severe, is now 24. And he was doing things that my oldest two boys just weren't doing. We kind of thought we had lost all ability to parent. Everything we tried to do with him to create a happy world for him and for us as a family was failing miserably. He was having crazy meltdowns, crazy behavior problems, out of control all the time. And we just kind of thought we had forgotten, or we just thought we were bad parents all of a sudden. Maybe we just forgotten everything that we knew how to be a good parent. And we really couldn't figure out what to do. He was, at 2 and 3 and 4, he still wasn't talking. He was nonverbal. He didn't understand things. He didn't understand consequences. He didn't understand consequences, good or bad, right? Rewards or consequences. Nothing was working. And I remember it was causing a lot of stress in our home, not just in our home, but between my wife and I, because we were thinking, what are we doing wrong, right? And it was kind of creating this this chasm between us, because it seemed like we were always kind of maybe thinking it was the other person not really being consistent. And turns out it wasn't that, but it was causing a lot of stress. Well, eventually we decided to put him in a preschool to see if maybe, getting him out of the house might help. Well, not long after he was in preschool, one of the teachers came to us and said, "Have you ever considered having him diagnosed on the autism spectrum?" And at that time, remember, 20 years ago, the only thing anybody knew about autism was a little boy sitting in a wheelchair stimming, right, flapping his hands. And so we didn't really think it was autism, but we said, whatever we have to do to figure this out, we want to do. Well, we took him in, and he was diagnosed on the severe side of autism, level 3. Back then, I think they called it classic autism or something like that. Now it's level 3. They've changed those over the years. But anyway, I never forget when we first got the diagnosis, we looked at each other and we thought, oh, finally, right? Now maybe we can get him the help he needs. Now that we know what's going on in his world, maybe we can get him the help he needs, and we can get our happy family back. And so we thought that diagnosis would give us relief. And we did everything the experts said. The experts and the therapists and the specialists, and we did everything we did. I mean, I could go down a list of all the different therapies we did. I mean, we did all kinds of stuff. I made a list one time, and it was 11 different types of things. Everything from therapies to ABA to, there was another one, BBA. There was all these different things going on at the time, and we tried everything, and we spent tons of time and lots of money. And I'll never forget, just trying to get him to go to these therapies was a nightmare. He hated it. It was like fighting a prize fighter when we were trying to get him to go to these therapies, and it just wasn't. It didn't seem to be helping us at home. Now, what they did well, and we appreciated the efforts they put into it, but it wasn't really solving the problems we were having home, the meltdowns and the fits of rage or violence or the screaming or the biting or the kicking. Although, the occupational, the speech therapy and the occupational therapies and the ABA and all those different things worked to a certain extent, once he came home, he was still completely out of control, and the stress was overwhelming. And we found ourselves what we called on this autism roller coaster, right? I'll never forget when I taught him how to say "I love you" to his mother. His mom left for the whole day, and I had a goal, and my goal was to get him to say "I love you" legibly enough where she could understand what he was saying. So all day long, she was probably gone 6 or 7 hours, and I just sat in front of him, and I would feed him cookies or whatever it was to get him to say it. By the time she got home, I said, "Hey, Shelly, check it out. I taught him how to do something." And I said, "Hey, Eric, say it." And he said, "I love you." But he said it in broken English, but she heard it. And we both just cried tears of joy, right? And it was this high. There was this high. It was so high. It was incredible. And I'll never forget, we were on this high. Less than a week later, in a fit of rage, he found a knife in the kitchen and came at us with a knife and tried to stab us, right? And so this high went from an extremely high to extremely low within a week, right? Or the time I finally potty trained him. At the time, he was 9 years old. I actually had tried everything. I finally potty trained him, and I remember my wife and I just cried tears of joy. At the time, we had 4 kids in diapers. We had Eric and one of my other sons, and then newborn twins in diapers. And when we finally got him potty trained, we just cried tears of joy. And I remember, again, less than a week later, in a fit of rage, he smashed his head through a plate glass window. And when I was in the emergency room with him, trying to hold him still while he was getting stitches, I was just thinking, oh my gosh, as happy as we were in that moment, we were down in this deep well again. And I remember the high highs were great, but the low lows, it seemed like we're getting deeper and deeper. And it was like we were digging this pit of despair, right? And nothing was getting us back to level, right? Our level just kept dropping. And we felt like we were living at a lower and lower and more despair, more discouraging level. And the fights and the arguments and just all the things that can come with autism when these kids are little or younger, right? And so we were really in bad shape. The stress was overwhelming in our home, but I'll never forget the day that it all changed. And that was the day we were living out in the country on 5.5 acres in a little town called Red Oak, Rocket, Texas. It was such a small town. Don't really even know. But I remember we were woke up one Saturday morning at about 6:30 in the morning with this blood curdling scream. And you guys know what I'm talking about. It's the scream that they can do when something's not going their way. And so, the whole house was awakened. My wife and I immediately went into action, trying to figure out what it was. He couldn't talk to us, so we didn't know. He couldn't tell us what was going on. We didn't know if he was hurt, if he was just looking for a puzzle piece, if he couldn't find a Lego it could be anything. And you know what I'm talking about. And and typically, a meltdown can last 10 minutes to maybe an hour or maybe 90 minutes at the most. This meltdown lasted 4 hours. And every time we would start to get him calmed back down, he would ramp back up, and he just kept going on and on. And by the time we finally got him calmed down for good, about 10:30, 4 hour meltdown, my wife's nerves were just frazzled. And my two older sons, my two typical boys, had locked themselves in their room to avoid, getting hit or whatever that he would do, because he would do anything in those moments. He I think in that morning he'd picked up something heavy. I think it was a paperweight or something, threw it at me and hit me in the head. I was bleeding. And by the time we finally got him calmed down, I think, the stress was so overwhelming that I think my wife and I kind of turned on each other. And this can happen when you're facing this overwhelming stress over and over and over. I think sometimes you just want to blame somebody. And sometimes the easiest person to blame is the person that's right there next to you, right? We found ourselves in this situation. And I remember my wife was very feminine and passive, and it worked well for me because I was very masculine and aggressive, and she was helping me overcome some of those tendencies. And we were bringing each other to center. But I remember this morning, she was ready to argue, and she had it with me, and the way I was managing the house. And she started saying, "Hey, if you would just be softer or kinder, then maybe he wouldn't have." And I said, "Well, if you wouldn't be so, if you'd give him a little discipline." And we, just start this argument, and neither of us were right or wrong, but we just wanted somebody to blame. And so we turned on each other, and we're just throwing, hurtling insults back and forth. And eventually I realized this isn't going to end, and it's just going to get worse and worse. I remember grabbing my keys and walking out on the front porch to cool down. And as I walked out there, I was just enraged. This isn't what I signed up for. Our life was in shambles. My wife didn't like me. My typical boys were scared to be in our own home. My sons on the spectrum were, there was so much stress. It couldn't be helpful for them. It wasn't helpful for me or my wife. We were in real trouble. And as I'm standing there, I had my keys in my pocket, and I thought to myself, you know what? This is what I signed up for. I'm going to leave, and I'm never coming back. And I remember in that moment, as I was looking at my car, just thinking, I'm going to start new somewhere else. I can't do this anymore. A memory of an event that had happened when I was about 11 or 12 popped into my mind. And it was, I was playing in a baseball game at 11 or 12, and there was 2 outs in the game, and we just needed 1 out, and the game would be over, and we would win. We were ahead in the game. And the ball was hit to me, and I made an error. And then the next kid got on base, and then more and more kids got on base. And the other team won, and we lost. And it was all my fault because they had hit the ball to me. And so I was upset and unhappy. And I remember walking over to my dad after the game, and I said to him, "You know what, Dad, I wish the ball hadn't been hit to me, because then maybe we could have won." And my dad in that moment got down on his knees right just at my level and said, "You know what, Kyle, that's not how we do things in this life. You don't ever want your success or failure to be put in anybody else's hands. You want to be the reason for success or failure. If something's not going right, you never want to go down without giving it the biggest effort you can. Just push as hard. You're not always going to win. You're going to fail sometimes, but don't ever pass that buck to somebody else. You don't go down without the biggest fight you can give. If something is important to you, don't go down without the biggest fight." And I thought in that moment, you know what, I can't quit my family as much as I wanted to. And as much as I thought it was everybody else and everything else, I knew what I had to do, and that was to stay and to figure it out. And that gave me pause in that moment, because I remember we'd tried everything. We'd been to the experts and the therapists we'd read every book there was on autism, and we just weren't getting any results in our home. We were still overwhelming stress. I remember at one point we read something that said that the stress that parents have in an autism home is comparable to that of a combat soldier. And I promise you that was us. We were both felt like we were in combat. The stress was so overwhelming. So in that moment, I did something else my father had taught me. And he said, when you don't know what else to do, pray. Ask for help from God. And so I went over, we had a big pecan tree in the front yard, and I kneeled under that pecan tree. And I just started praying. And I don't remember what I prayed about, but I do remember how I felt. And I felt like God reached out to me. I just felt in my heart that he reached out to me in that moment and said, you know what? The problem is not your wife, and the problem is not your typical kids, and the problem is not your kids on the spectrum. The problem is you. Fix you. You figure it out. Figure it out for you. And don't leave. You need to stay with your family. You need to be the father your kids need and the husband your wife needs. Don't leave. It's you. Figure it out. Well, initially, I didn't like that feeling because I didn't think it was me. It was everything else, right? It was society wasn't treating me right. It was the therapists weren't working and the experts weren't doing the right thing. And my wife and my kid, it seemed like it was everything else, but it wasn't everything else. It was me. It was me. And I realized in that moment too that I couldn't change anybody else, but I could change me. Right. And I thought, you know what? That is what I'm going to do. And I remember walking back inside in that moment and walking up to my wife. And she was still mad. I could tell she was still mad. But I walked over to her and I said, you know what? I'm not leaving. And I'm going to figure this out. And in that moment, she said to me something I'll never forget. She said, good luck. She was so mad at me. And she had lost such faith in me as a father and a husband that she was done with me in that moment. And I realized that I needed to repair my relationship with my wife as well. And that was a big part of what I had to do. So the day it all changed was that day for me. And I committed. I became that day what I like to call myself now, which is the driven autism dad. And I was willing to do anything. I was driven to figure it out. And that is what I'm going to share with you in the next couple of parts here, the next couple of days. So the three secrets that we discovered that were holding us back once we started to make these changes were: secret number one is we can't outsource our family's happiness to others, right? If you're expecting ABA to fix your at-home autism challenges, it's not going to work. If you've seen it work a little bit, good for you, but don't expect it to. If the experts and the specialists and the therapists are good at what they do, and they do what they do for a reason, but if you're expecting your child to come home and be perfect and not be defiant and not have any more meltdowns, you already know this. You're barking up the wrong tree. Too many of us think if we get them the right therapy or get them the right expert or get them the right specialist, then they'll come home and they'll stop this behavior. And that's just not the way it works, right? So we cannot outsource our family's happiness. It's up to us. And that's secret number two. You are the answer. We are the miracle our kids need. We just need to get trained. And that's what we're going to do in the next couple of days. We need to get trained and we need to learn the skills we need to be at our very best when they're at their worst. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about in the next couple of days. We are the answer. You and I are the miracle our kids need to transform our families from struggling and tremendous stress to facing these things with hope and faith and courage and a plan. We're going to talk about having a plan to face these different challenges. And when we do things, all this stuff in the spirit of love, we're going to feel like the greatest parents. We're going to know no matter what happens, we are who we need to be for our kids. And that's what we want. And secret number three is this: you can't just watch this training. You can't just go attend a seminar. You can't just read a book and it be fixed. You're going to have to apply the information that I'm going to share with you in the next couple of days. Okay. Secret one is you can't outsource your family's happiness. Secret two is you are the miracle. This is the beautiful thing about it. Okay. I'm going to teach you who you need to be. I'm going to teach you the training and the skills and the techniques you need to become who you need to be for your kids, no matter what challenges they're facing. Meltdowns, rage, violence, biting, kicking, screaming, arguing, defiance, kids pressing your hot buttons, getting your kids to eat, potty, are these things We are the answer. And I'll show you how that works, okay? And then again, you've got to take action. You've got to apply what you're going to learn, test it, adjust it, right? Because again, all families are different. Yeah, all kids are unique, right? Your child is different than mine. They're going to respond differently, but you got to make adjustments as you go so that you can get the answer and get the strategy and the tactics you need to put in place to give your kids the things that they need to make those adjustments themselves. Okay. So why this event? Now that you know who I am, what am I about? Why am I doing this event? Well, this is my wife, Shelly. And I'll never forget on our 30th anniversary, the very last time we spent time alone together, she and I were able to go to Florida, to Destin, Florida, in our anniversary. And I'll never forget one day, I had run over to the grocery store. She was in the hotel. And I came back and she had my laptop and she was sitting on the living room floor of this hotel room and she had tears in her eyes. She was looking at my laptop. And I said, "What's going on?" And she said, "You know what? I'm reading some emails of some parents who are struggling." And she said, "You need to teach them what we know. You need to share with them what we know." And I said, "You know, what else am I supposed to do?" I'd written a book. I'd done autism conferences. I had a Facebook page with 1,000 videos on there. And she said, "I don't know, but you have to do more to help families get what we have. And that is a top 1% happy family and a top 1% happy marriage, even as we face those challenges." And I'll never forget to her, I said, "I don't know what else to do. I don't know what else to do. I'm trying, Shelly." And she said, "Well, what would you give a family that would almost guarantee their success?" And this sent me on a path to what I've created for you in this training. That is why I'm doing this. And this is my gift to you for Christmas. I was thinking about what's the greatest gift we can give to our kids, right? I'm not a great gift giver. My wife did all that. And I've had to learn, but the greatest gift we can give to our kids is the very best us we can be, right? Model good behavior, teach them what they need to know, create ways for them to express themselves in a positive way so they can achieve their full potential, no matter what that may be. That's us. That is what we can give them. That's the greatest gift I could give to you, is the training you need and the tools and the strategies you need to be your very best for your kids so that they can excel and be their very best, right? And so that question really led me to this presentation. What would you give a family that would almost guarantee their success? That is what I'm going to cover in the next couple of days here. So here's what I want to ask you. Which one is you? I had a ton of excuses why this wouldn't work. When I first started this process, I had so many excuses why nothing would work. And it is what it is, right? My family's different. My child is unique. There's no training unique enough for us. My spouse won't support me. We have different parenting styles. I don't know what else I can do. That sounds like too much work, and I'm already exhausted. That was mine, right? I'm going to show you this week how you're already exhausted because you're doing the wrong things. If I teach you how to do the right things, you won't be exhausted. It gives you energy when you face these things in a spirit of love in the right way. You're not exhausted anymore. When you face meltdown after meltdown and you face them with happiness and joy and courage and in a spirit of love, and I'm going to give you the tactics, you're energized by that. A good friend of mine, Cameron, I was talking to him on Friday of last week, and he said his wife was applying during that week a very specific strategy I'm going to share with you on Wednesday, part 3. And she had been exhausted for weeks prior to this, and she applied this strategy. And at the end of the week, he said she was smiling and full of energy. And he said, "What's going on?" And she said, "I've been doing that strategy, and it's making me feel like the greatest mom in the world. I'm getting results. I'm watching my daughter change her patterns because I'm changing my patterns, and it's exciting." Okay, she's facing the same thing she's always faced, but she's full of energy and full of excitement because, okay, if we're gonna have to face those battles, let's face them in a way that gives us energy and doesn't exhaust us. When we fight with our kids, when we argue with our kids, it's draining. Okay, there's a better way, and that's what I'm going to teach you how to do. You're already working hard. I'm saying work hard at the right things. And I'm going to show you what those are, okay? I'm just an average person. I can't do it all. That's me. I tell people all the time I'm average. That's what I am. I'm just an average guy. I don't have any special skills, I promise you. It's just learning the specific things we need to do on a consistent basis, right? ABA, therapy, specialists are the answer. I hope my kids on the spectrum grow out of it, right? ABA, specialists, therapists are the answer. If they were the answer, so many people wouldn't be struggling. Billions, $6 billion a year is spent on these people, and families are still struggling. Okay. It's going to be okay. Level conquer all. Let me tell you, I've met individuals that are grown now on the spectrum, and they've shared with me that their relationships with their families, their moms, their dads, their brothers and sisters are extremely damaged because the stress was overwhelming in their homes. Okay. If you think you've got stress, imagine how much stress your child on the spectrum has, your kiddos. Our job is to remove that stress for us and for them. And I'm going to teach you how to do that, right? Love is not enough. Okay. You can say you love your kid all day, but if they feel overwhelming stress in your own home, they're not going to feel loved. And I hate to say that, but that's a harsh reality. And that's what these adults on the spectrum told me. Will anything at all really work? You've tried a lot of stuff. I know that. I just don't believe it's possible for us. It is what it is. This is happening to every autism family. Not true. Okay. There are families like mine and so many others now that I've worked with that have learned what I'm going to teach you that are thriving. Okay. Who is this for? If you are watching this, you probably already know, okay, I'm hearing good stuff. Let's get into what are the tactics. And that's what we're going to do tomorrow. If you're watching this, you can't keep doing the same things and expect different results. Your kids don't grow out of this. As a matter of fact, sometimes it gets worse. I worked with a lady a couple of months ago. Her initials are SH. I can picture her. She's a pretty brunette lady. Her son is now 16. He's been in and out of the hospital multiple times. She calls him higher functioning autism, I guess level 1. I don't know. Labels, whatever label you want to put on it or don't put on it. But he's so defiant, and he's got this oppositional defiance disorder, and he loves to argue, and it's caused this tremendous stress, and he's been in and out of the hospital multiple times this past year. I sat down with her, and we created a strategy one day based on the framework I'm going to teach you. And she sent me a message. I'll share that with you later this week, that she got him to clean up his room in the backyard with no arguments because she was thoughtful in that approach, right? But if you keep doing the same things and expect different results, you're not going to get it. As a matter of fact, in a lot of cases, it just gets worse. Listen, hope and faith are good. Hope and faith and prayer are good, and I recommend them, but you need a plan. You need tools and training. You need to know how to create your own plans and create tools and get yourself the training you need to be successful as a parent and be the very best parent you can be for yourself and for your kiddos. That's what we're going to talk about. So what is your reason? Think about your reasons. Maybe, for me, it's my wife, is her legacy, and it's for my kids. And it's because now I want to see, when I see other families struggling, it hurts my heart. And so what is your reason? Maybe it's your ASD, maybe it's your ASD kiddos or your typical kids, or maybe you have a damaged relationship with your spouse and you want to repair that and become a top 1% happy marriage. Or maybe it's you're just exhausted and overwhelmed and feel like you're not doing enough. That's a good reason right there. That's the best reason to me. I want to give you the tools and training. What's your reason for wanting to solve and work through some of this stuff and really get the tools and the training you need to thrive as a person and as a family? And I want you to really think about that, because that's going to keep you going and get you motivated to follow what we're going to do here. So part two, tomorrow we're going to talk about the secret to a proven 4.5-step framework. It's a really simple framework that's going to allow you to start the process of parenting your at-home autism challenges in a spirit of love. And this is the 4-part recipe, the 4.5-part recipe. I wish, if I could go back 20 years, I wish somebody would have set me down and said, here's what you need to know, Kyle. And if they would have told me this, I would have saved myself so much pain and struggle and suffering, and my wife and I wouldn't have been on the brink of divorce and all these things, all this, golly. I don't want you to have to go through that. So I'm going to share with you this 4.5-part recipe. I wish this is what they knew, but they don't. And how can they? They don't have kids on the spectrum. They've never had to face what we face. By the way, if somebody who's never had kids on the spectrum starts telling you how to raise kids on the spectrum, okay. Listen, they may have some good information and apply it and try it. Don't be mean to them, because they're just trying to help. But it's hard for those people to understand some of the things that you and I have gone through and the uniqueness of our situation and our families. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow, the unique situation you are in, and a framework that you're going to be able to plug into whatever your situation is, whether you got a big family or small family, one kid on the spectrum, multiple kids, single parent, married, doesn't matter. This framework will work for you tomorrow. So what to do today? Go do your homework. Okay. By homework, I mean this. I'm going to go to my Facebook page here. This is Kyle Jetzel Facebook page there. You see that? And I'm going to go to, oh, I have something in the way here. Let me see if I can get there. Ah, that's not it. All right. Let me go to home. And then I'm going to go to, see if I can move this little guy here. I'm trying to move this bar so I can, here we go. Parenting at Home Autism Challenge. This is our Facebook group. If you're not a member of this group, please join. And you'll want to go to the guides section. This is your homework. Now, I would recommend going to guide one, doing the pregame stuff. There's a pregame video and a couple of items that you can complete there. But here's day one, the number one mistake most autism parents make. If you click on that, it will come up and it'll say day one tasks and homework. By the way, I will be putting a replay of this on there. So day one homework, after you've watched day one, please answer the following questions in the comments. What's your biggest takeaway? What do you really want for your family? Will my current plan get me what I want? And then there's a worksheet you can fill out, okay? Do that for me. If you want to, after you've done that on the guide section, just, put a quick comment and say done. I want to know that you're done so that I can give you credit for it, so that I can reward you at the end of this week, okay? So that is your homework. Again, I'll do that again. I'll go back to my page. Let's see, Kyle Jetzel, count. Okay. So if you start on your page and you go to, how did I get there? There we go. Parenting at Home Autism Challenges in Spirit of Love Facebook page. That's a group, private group. And you can see right there, Facebook groups, Parenting at Home Autism in Spirit of Love. Go to guides, do the first one, and then click done on that one. And then go to day one tasks, click on that link, complete those questions, and fill out that form. And again, this is not really for me, it's more for you, because I want you to take action. And because you're going to get results if you take action, I promise you that, okay? Do that, and that is your homework. This is not a watch and go again, okay? If you're expecting to read another book and to solve all your problems, it doesn't work that way. You have to apply the stuff you're learning, okay? And this is how I'm going to help you apply it, by giving you this worksheet, giving you that workbook that you can fill out and start the application of this information, okay? So part one homework workbook, what to do now. Do your homework. This is not a watch and go. You need to be an action taker. If you don't take action, nothing will change. Okay, next video, part two, will be tomorrow at 1 o'clock Mountain Time. Same link you clicked on today to get here. Same Facebook page if you're watching the replay. And I will teach you the proven framework. Again, it doesn't matter if your kids are level 1, 2, or 3, whether they're nonverbal or verbal, whether they have struggles with eating or meltdowns, or any situation you're facing at home autism challenges, arguing, kids pressing hot buttons, rage, meltdowns, biting, kicking, screaming, smashing iPads, TVs, whatever it is, the framework I'm going to share with you tomorrow is going to be a step towards creating strategies for you and your unique situation, because one size doesn't fit all, okay? You need a unique plan for you, and tomorrow is going to be the start of us creating that unique plan for you, okay? So join us tomorrow. That's your secret framework. And I think that's it. I think that's all we have today. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing here. Perfect. All right. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. And tomorrow, join me same time tomorrow, where we'll be covering that framework. I can't wait to talk to you then. And I can't wait to see your success. I'm really excited for those of you that have joined us. And I can't wait to see your success. So I will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.